how to have quick, easy, tangible strategies in your contract to exit and terminate that contract beforehand. So, number one, in your contract, for early termination in your contract, we need to make sure that there's provisions that are in the contract for situations that happen. Sometimes you just aren't feeling it, or sometimes you're also just not loving that relationship, thinking the way it would be, or it's not aligning with your business anymore either. So it's not a breach of contract. It's literally just, I just want to leave. I don't want to continue this business relationship anymore. So the number one thing to make sure that every single contract that you get into has is notice. Notice seems like a very innocuous clause in your contract, something that just seems very mundane and maybe boilerplate. But it's very important, because what happens is that there are certain things that happen in a contract or in a business relationship that is material to that relationship. So wanting to exit early is a material action in a business contractual relationship. So if it's the other party or if it's you that wants to exit early, we need to have a notice provision in there. So that gives the other party notice that I'm about to do this. And you're not leaving them high and dry. You're also giving them some grace period to maybe cure an issue or figure out what's going on, so maybe we can make it better or ease the transition of your exit. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to burn bridges. Burning bridges, unless it's absolutely something that is against your value system and against something that you stand for, and you're just like, I cannot. Burning bridges is not the best thing to do in an industry. Industries are small, especially the more you niche down into an industry, people start knowing about you, and your business reputation is everything when people are wanting to do business with you. So notice provision is very important. And in that provision, you're telling them material issues that I'm gonna, XYZ is gonna happen. It's a material action in the contractual obligation. Plus, it also gives you time to really think about what you're doing as well. And it gives them time to cure and think as well and have the conversations that are necessary. Now, number two, that's very important in a contract, is the termination clause itself. You need to have something that is solid, something that navigates both parties on how to terminate, even if it's literally the end of the road for the contract itself and it's coming to a termination date in the contract. But say again, the early termination is there. So you want to have in your contract how to terminate the contract or the business contractual obligations. What do you need to do? What's the roadmap on that? How does it look like? So of course, notice is important. And then how many days notice do you need to give with regards to termination? And then are you going to have reasons to terminate, or is it at will? Anybody can terminate for whatever cause at any given point in time. And then how is the money going to be handled? How are you going to exchange monies at that time for the services or goods that have been given or not been given, and for the money that has been paid or not been paid? And is there a refund involved in there for any advances that have been paid or retainers that have been given? So these are all important things to have, but then also have a step-by-step process. I'm giving notice. I'm going to be terminating. This is what we have to do with the money. This is what we have to do with whatever's left over with regards to the services or the goods. And if there is a dispute, we're going to give ourselves time to figure that one out also. But the notice is there, and parties might stop, or they may not stop performing under the contract, depending on what the contract is about. And then at the end of that, they're free to leave, free of obligations and duties under that contract. So it's very important to have a termination clause in there, so that way you can easily navigate yourselves out of a contract. In addition to that, sometimes we might have a certain act of God, as they call it, or a circumstance that is absolutely out of either party's control. And it could just be one party or two parties. And so how do you handle those when it's not a circumstance that is directly in your control? So such like COVID, that was not in anybody's control, especially for most of the both parties. And a lot of contracts and business relationships were actually impacted by it. Now, that's called the force majeure clause, and you need to have that in there. And just like the termination clause, you need to have a time frame, you need to have notice, time frame to cure the issue if you can. And then also you need to have a step-by-step roadmap on how to terminate and end that contractual relationship that seems fair and equal to both parties and fair to both parties. So equal doesn't mean that everybody gets 50-50, but basically it's an equal way to, tie up the loose ends and also to step away from one another. So those are super important things to have in your contract. Again, step-by-step processes are very helpful because nobody's confused, nobody's questioning the process, and you already know how to handle it. And so you don't have to go to a mediator necessarily, or an arbitrator, or a court, or a judge, or even a lawyer, because you've already discussed this. You've already discussed all of this in the beginning. And so now when you do need to exit, it's good to exit in a happy way. Another thing to have when you are exiting your business contractual relationship is to have a termination letter between you and the other party. And you're basically signing it saying that we are done. We have agreed upon the terms concluding this relationship, and XYZ has been paid this much, or if you want to include that in there, but have a termination letter where both parties are expressing their desire to exit and that they are mutually doing it now with all the mutual understandings between both of you, and then sign it as well. So these are some quick tips to have in your contract to make sure that the exit is not so stressful, and also something that you can manage at the front end, and you don't have to deal with it in a courtroom paying thousands of extra dollars for that, when you could have paid maybe up, some hundreds of dollars just to create a contract that is best suited for you and for your client, or for the vendor, or for any other business partner that you're working with at that time. If this was helpful to you, subscribe, because when you subscribe, you are helping others as well. And plus, you're gonna get the latest and the greatest coming out of GBP Law.